stepping in and trying to help parent the kids. I don't know. It doesn't look great. It doesn't feel great, but I'm sure that there's long-term reasons for it. So
no. Also, cool. Are you red pill now? Should we have the government teaching our kids? No, we should have our parents teaching our kids. Like, what the hell is going on? And so, like, that's a red pill notion, concept, so...
Topic number 2, we're talking about China bans. Of course, you know, it feels like we're talking about China bans last week, China bans this week. Certain headlines go more or less viral. This one happens to go really viral. It's called China bans sissy men on TV.
All right, so what we got to do is we're going to talk about what that actually means and if it's actually true, and if so, how true.
Yeah.
All right, guys, moving on to our second topic as we finish up the hot pot, we have to talk about the headline that's going crazy, China bans sissy men. Now, that's the headline. It's going viral, of course, for a number of reasons. It's causing a lot of controversy and a lot of conversation.
A number of people sent me that article in English. Obviously, I can read a little Chinese, not very well, but I didn't read any of the Chinese articles, but I did, you know, it sparked me to do some research.
Yeah, so we had to do a little bit of research, and I encourage you guys to do your own research on this topic as well to get clearance, because it sounds confusing. You're like, oh, are they banning just sissy men? And that sounds very, very harsh.
Actually, there's a misinterpretation of this Chinese term, yang pao. So that term actually...
Okay, so real quick, we're getting into it and get into this second topic. So it's really interesting that they're getting this news now, whereas if you were watching like Tim Pool and everyone that is independent media, you were picking this up. Like, you know, like China was already doing their like propaganda as far as like only masculine men can be in the military, in their military, right? And so, you know, again, so this is interesting because Michael Knowles has brought this up too in his video talking about this topic. It's like, obviously he doesn't agree with the communist China, but this subject he kind of has to agree with, because communist China recognizes, like, you can't just have, if you're gonna have a warrior base, you can't have weak men, you know? And so we'll go into it, see what they have to say, but yeah.
China has multiple meetings, so it actually that was sort of like some of the phrasing used in state media, but in the actual, like, I guess, like, rule book they got handed down, they don't use that language.
Okay, so the reason why they are banning a bunch of stuff, and this is not the only thing they banned, they had a lot of other bans on like vulgar celebrities. They put a ban on like internet celebrities that are showing too much wealth.
You can't make it rain anymore.
Yeah, you can't make it rain.
Definitely cannot make it rain.
They don't want to show wastefulness. Obviously, they kind of banned certain levels of mukbangs or mukbangs. So because they didn't want that to influence their population. Now, what I'm trying to understand that China is doing is like they're trying to like set up the next generation to carry China through, and in their belief, which a lot of people obviously disagree with, is that they're coming down strict and kind of censoring certain imageries for the youth, especially, right? Now, how strict are these bans and what is the actual punishment? I don't know, because at the end of the day, guys, if your parents tell you, hey, you can't go out to that party or you can't date girls or guys, guess what? You can still find the workaround.
No, I think 28 things got banned.
Yeah.
Like, literally, there was a gigantic list. And of course, in terms of, like, I guess the presentation in the Western media, we're only going to get like a few of them. The ones that, you know, sensationalized news are good.
That we find offensive in the West the most,
right?
The
ones that get the viral hits. I mean, what do you think in general? We're not talking about any specific ones, but what do you think about just like the bands in general for them to try to have like a cultural rejuvenation?
I think that they're just kind of thinking about the long term of how media affects people. Now, one of the things that kind of like the Chinese government is trying to avoid is this crazy worship of celebrities, because there has been some celebrity scandals, pretty bad ones recently, obviously with very popular guys, and it's kind of like, well, do you want to let these idols become so popular and then honestly they turn out to be negative people? And that's
you're talking about like a Chris Wu type situation.
Chris Wu's type situation was bad, and it was almost like, well, if all these people look up to Chris Wu and we let him have like unlimited power and unlimited influence, and then he does something bad, it's going to influence other people in a bad way. Now, I think that is a somewhat simple way to look at a lot of human behavior, but I think they're just looking at it in the long term and on a mass scale.
My major takeaway is that, listen guys, I think when you look at a country like China, and it's not a very spiritual country, so there's not really like, I guess, a, you know, religious baseline for understanding a lot of things. they kind of like, I wish they had a more organic culture so people would just sort of make the right decisions, or who knows what the actual right decisions are. That's very subjective, right? But let's say in my eyes, the right decisions more organically, but in any sort of instance where that's not available, then the government has to come through with a law. But it is a little bit like letting your kid get fat and then saying your kid gotta go on a hardcore diet.
Right.
Whereas there could have been some more sustainable maintenance previously to prevent your kid from getting fat to begin with.
You're saying they're kind of taking it 0 to 100 real quick, and maybe that is a little unfair. Ideally, they would have taken steps, but that's hard to.
Right.
Okay, so I'll jump in and say, like, okay, so I think communist China is looking at what is happening to America, right? In against this woke ideology that's rising up. We are having people who is playing video games and not working out, and we have like going against like elderlies. We're like this whole confusion of gender identity. You have all these people like not going, like, I hate using this word, but alpha, especially when it comes to men, or women just being like, I don't know, this whole rebellion type thing against manhood, toxic masculinity. I'm not saying you have to be 100%, you don't have to be like Handmaid's Tale like woman, but like at the same time, you like this whole just like taking culture to the extreme versus what the culture would be, in a sense, like building yourself up, leveling yourself up, like the proverb, right? I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war, right? And so China's just taking that up, right? Like we don't want gardeners in a war. Like we don't want these woke people in a war. We want fucking warriors in a freaking garden. We want warriors in a paradise, And so, and pretty much that, like, as much as I disagree with like communism, right? But at least that persona is based. That's conservatism right there, right? And a lot of people on the conservative side, like they're talking about like, hey, we gotta work out, we gotta go to these traditional values, we gotta like be like, men should be men, women should be women. I'm not saying that you gotta be 100% out like girls in the kitchen or whatever, and guys have to fix cars or whatever. Maybe there is some interchangeable in that, whatever. But at the same time, if anything, I would rather want everyone to be warriors. I want everyone to be like able to cook, because I like to cook, right? And so like I think there's a balance, and you can go to the extreme on that, right? But at the same time, like what I'm trying to say is, again, communist China is seeing what this level of woke culture and influence is just like weakening society, right? And so like that adage, like hard times create strong men make good times make weak men make hard times, right? And so like we are seeing that in America. We have seen that in the course of cycles throughout history, and so it just makes sense. So it's interesting that they don't really go there. We'll see if they like are picking up on that notion, but let's hear what else they gotta say.
Slower escalation, slower acceleration is more goal. It kind of goes back to when we were talking about the ban on gaming, where it was like, man, maybe y'all should have made the society more fun to begin with, so people didn't even see gaming as like the number one option.
Now, I think one thing that a lot of people are mentioning, and I'm going to end off my point here, is like a lot of people are like, oh, well, where are the parents? It's all up to the parents and the family to decide all this. Why is the government stepping in? Now, obviously, China is a different society.
They're a different society.
And Chinese parents,
it's really different.
And Chinese parents are very stressed out, with everything that's going on in China. I'm not making excuses, but yeah, the government is stepping in and trying to help parent the kids. I don't know. It doesn't look great. It doesn't feel great, but I'm sure that there's long-term reasons for it. So
no.
Also, cool. Are you red pill now? Should we have the government teaching our kids? No, we should have our parents teaching our kids. Like, what the hell is going on? And so, like, that's a red pill notion, concept. So,
any final takeaways?
I just think it's really hard for the overall consensus to fix something or change something, or like lay the laws upon something when it's already too late, right? You can't wait till it's the last minute where everything's already like effed up already, and then all of a sudden, all right, we're gonna do this, we're gonna try to change this, like you said, from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0. Like at that time, it's already too late.
Just to our first topic, I think the Asian American identity is still very much in flux. and obviously what is China's modern culture going to be and society going to be, and how much big of a role a government is or not going to play in it, it's still in flux.
Yeah, man. I just think, China is a unique country, for better or for worse, and that they can actually implement stuff like this versus America. There's no question you're not doing any of this. So
even if people might want to, like, let's say for example there was like a more right-wing president, for sure they would probably think of it, but the mechanisms wouldn't allow for the implementation.
I don't think the American people would take it.
This was a dope discussion. The Hot Pot Boys podcast taking place at one of the best hot pot restaurants.
So I agree with that. Like, obviously, like, America is rebellious in a sense, but like I was saying earlier, a lot of the conservative side already recognize this, right? Already recognize that we should go like again, just like we should be like men and women, whatever. You should be well dressed. You should be well educated. You should be well traveled, right? And so we should focus less. I'm not saying that you can't play video games. I'm not saying that you can't have fun. I'm not saying all of that, but at the same time, have a focus, right? Have a purposeful life, right? And develop yourself. Don't just like fall into recreation, but also develop your skills, develop your craft, develop your like vision, prayerhood, everything. Well, prayerhood if you're like Christian or religious in general, but like be the best version of yourself versus just thinking that, just going coasting, right? And so, yeah.
In the world, Da Long Yi. Last but not least, guys, what was your favorite thing, man? I'm gonna go with the shrimp paste. I thought the shrimp paste.
Alright, so final thoughts, closing into it. I don't think they dived into this as much as I wanted to. They didn't deconstruct this as far as why is China doing this, rather than like China's doing this and they're going to 0 to 100 and like they were saying. But I think they need to focus on why communist China, and I want to separate Chinese people from communist China. Why is CCP doing this? Like, why do they feel the need going into this? Again, as in the conservative side, we see like what woke culture can do as a negative, and so. And then the American influence, like on TikTok and all this stuff, and like influencing, and communist China sees that's a problematic. And same thing with a lot of conservatives and people on the right see like this stuff that is influencing people just wanting to become influencers versus like astronauts and everything. They just want to have an easy life, right? And so. Again, they're not diving into it as much as I would want to. So yeah. Alright, comment below, tell me your thoughts, what you guys picked up from the last video and this video, and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on my Instagram at Mitch, and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.